Paul McCartney there, and take it away from, ages ago. Yeah, I was just thinking, about the time that I've actually met Paul McCartney.
Have you?
Yeah. Oh, hang on, Matthew. We'll do the whole thing. Why don't we'll just start? We'll do it properly.
It's time now for the latest news on what's hot and what's not in the world of technology with Matthew Dickerson on Tech Talk. Here on TCFM 88.9.
Yeah. Morning.
Morning.
Now, one social distancing. Two, use that.
Yeah, that's good.
You've used it.
We're covered. We've done the normal things we need to do with CV at the moment.
Yes, we have. We've sanitised.
So it's interesting that you say you met Paul McCartney,
Yeah, I
because
did.
when I met Paul McCartney, he said, "You know what, Matthew? I've met Richard Mutton."
No, it was my 15 minutes of fame. I just couldn't believe it. And was on some back steps of a radio studio in Sydney.
Yeah, wow.
And at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I couldn't believe what I was looking at. My godfather, that's Paul McCartney. And I was gobsmacked. I just didn't know what to do. And anyway, long story, but we're not here to do that. We're here to do Tech Talk. And indeed, and we're trying to get away from the COVID-19 and NBN. Price relief.
We hope.
We hope.
We hope.
We hope, yes.
Obviously, at the moment, there are so many people working remotely, kids at home, university students, people being sent home from work. So there's an incredible amount of pressure being put on the entire internet, and obviously the NBN is an important part of that here in Australia. Now, there are some people who choose to go mobile broadband because it's more cost effective and the speed is actually pretty good, especially with 5G. So the pressure is being put on from the retail service providers to NBN, because NBN is a wholesaler. You can't go and get your service directly from NBN, and they're a wholesaler, and there's pressure being put on by the retailers to bring that wholesale price down to $20 for a basic service, so they can retail that for in the vicinity of $30. Now, at the moment, some of the basic services that you can get, just the really simple services from NBN, you'll end up paying maybe $60, $70 from your retail service provider, which for some people, they say, well, it's not worth that. I don't use it enough. It's just not worth it. So there's a pressure being put on there, and hopefully the government will respond. And what we also need, I suppose, two parts of the NBN is some higher end speed, so people can go to those better speeds at somewhat reasonable prices, and also some price relief on that lower end. So there's a bit of work being done on the NBN. There was a boast the other day from the Federal Minister that it's now past 11 million premises, and that is great, but only about 6 to 7 million of those have actually connected. And part of that reason is because of the pricing and also the I suppose, advent of some of these mobile broadband services.
Indeed. Now that I'm on 5G and now that I've got a decent NBN service, I love it. But yeah, it took a long time. It took a long, long time, and I was ready to throttle anybody who said anything about NBN, who said I'd work for NBN. I was ready to throttle them. It only took 5 years.
That's right.
5 long years of frustration. Anyway, this is a brilliant story. The supercars, the competition will continue. Now, hang on. It's been wiped like everything else. The Prime Minister made very clear. By the way, he had trouble with premises last night too.
He did.
Yeah, twice. He got it right the third time. Supercars, how are they going to do it?
Supercars, I mean, obviously, like so many sports around the world, they're being cancelled because of the close association with people. So with super sports, the drivers are going to do an e-sports version. So they're basically being set up with individually, so they don't have to have a group of people there together. They don't need pit crews. They're basically set up with the same as, a little bit better, I suppose, than you and I might set up at home in terms of having the steering wheel and the seat set up with our computers. But essentially, basically, they're going to be doing esports and racing against each other. So your favourite drivers, you can see what racing there, but in esports. And they actually tried this in Formula One when some of the first rounds were obviously cancelled or postponed. They tried this with Formula One. Some of the drivers were a bit precious about it. I mean, Lewis Hamilton was one of them. He's paid, I think, $60 or $80 million at the moment. And he said, no, I don't want to do that. Thanks very much. And, well, you've been paid enough, you could probably do it. But they had 350,000 people tune in to watch Formula One drivers race electronic versions, and it wasn't even all the big names there. The names like Lewis Hamilton weren't racing there. So if they can get those big names involved, I think they'll get some big audiences. But again, with supercars, all the supercar drivers have said, we'll happily do this, we'll participate, to at least give the fans something to watch. Yeah, so I think it'll be fantastic.
It's great. So when do we see rugby league on television?
I was thinking the same thing. How can you do this with cricket and rugby league?
AFL, whatever.
Yeah, and there are sports versions of those, but it's probably, at least with driving, the same skills are transferable. In fact, a lot of work is done in simulators now with driving, and there are some people who actually make it through to some of the major sports who actually do play some games electronically and get to that point where they're good enough that they then get to the point where some of the manufacturers say, we want to have you in a real driver's seat rather than in a simulator. So that's transferable. Rugby league, playing your PlayStation or your Xbox, because you're a rugby league player playing the same game on there may not be as transferable. But look, maybe there's an opportunity there.
We might have to do it anyway. Yeah. All right. Now, I've been saving this one up, and you did this on purpose to me, I know. How long will my toilet paper supply last?
There are some terrible hoarders out there, obviously. And I saw one meme that had this thing from a guy from 2050, and he's opening up his last toilet paper roll, and he says, I'm just going through the last toilet paper roll that Mum bought back in 2020. So I often joke with people, if someone says a question, any random question, I often joke and say, there's an app for that. But I didn't think there'd be an app for how long your toilet paper would last. But there is. There's an app that will tell you how long your toilet paper will last. You put in some variables in there. For example, how many sheets per wipe, how many times you might go to the toilet each day, whether you prefer your 2-ply or 4-ply toilet paper. So there's a range of variables that you put in. Once you put in those and you put in how many rolls of toilet paper you've hoarded away, it'll tell you how many days, weeks, months, years of supply that you have in your toilet paper. And it actually might shock some people. I think there are some people out there who do have years of supply. So they might put this into their new app that they go and download, and then they'll go, wow, I probably don't need the next 7 years of toilet paper supply.
Exactly. Children are the worst at using toilet paper. They're very good at using toilet paper. Yards and yards and yards of it. How do they calculate that?
They normally give it a pull on the toilet paper roll and it keeps spinning and keeps
exactly. Kids are really good at doing that. So, all right, the handy calculator. Yep. How much do they cost? Any idea?
It's a free app.
It's a free app.
Download that app. Yeah.
How long? I don't. Oh dear.
There are some very creative, innovative people out there.
On a serious note, Facebook and Gumtree are reporting ads exploiting the CV at the moment.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good move by the major social media companies like Facebook, for example, where people are hoarding and then they're realising that they're sitting on a gold mine and they think, well, no one else can get toilet paper at the moment and I've done my toilet paper calculator, I've got years of supply. So they start advertising and people have been selling rolls of toilet paper for ridiculous amounts of money, $50, $30 for rolls of toilet paper because you just can't get it. Hand sanitizer.
That stuff, $45.
Yeah, just absolutely ridiculous.
Break.
So that is a situation that I think is unfair on the community, price gouging at its absolute worst, and really just taking advantage of people that can't go and hoard that. So if Facebook or Gumtree and other social media sites see people advertising exorbitant prices for things that are basic needs, they're actually shutting down those sites. So be warned, if that's your plan to hoard and then sell, then you'll find it a bit harder to get that information out there.
Yeah, and indeed, I know in Victoria, do it in Victoria, and the Thought Police will come and find you.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's good.
Yeah. And look, this is a situation where we need the entire community to work together. The last thing we need are people in the community who are taking advantage of other people who maybe can't afford to go and hoard.
Exactly. Very quickly, I had to do early shopping this morning. We needed Kleenex tissues here and a bit of this stuff, and went and got it. And so I lined up at 7 o'clock because I'm able to. I'm at the correct age. And interestingly, at Woolies this morning, they checked your ID.
Oh, wow.
To let you in, had a security guard there, let you in. Yep, they had that stuff and they had other bits and pieces. And I only got one box of Kleenex tissues because I thought that's all I'd be allowed to have. And forlornly, on the toilet paper shelf, there were 4 rolls of toilet paper, 4 of those packs left. And
7 o'clock.
At about 10 past 7.
Wow.
And while I was there, I just helped one lady who was very short pull one down to give to her. I'm fine for toilet paper, by the way, but yeah, it's getting to that stage. And Andrew is very cross this morning about children wandering the streets. They're supposed to be at home, and really, this social distancing we've got to practice. This stuff we've just got to use it because we've got 3 in the district now. 3 in the district now. Matt, won't see you next week. We'll hear you, but we won't see you.
We'll do it over the phone next week.
We'll do it over the phone next week. Yeah. Thanks for Tech Talk. And as I said, be a phoner from now on until we're allowed to congregate at this long distance again. We better say bye-bye to everybody. on the cameras this morning. It'll be a few weeks, folks. Which one do I look at? That one? I don't know. Got no idea. All right. See you later, mate. DCFM 88.9, and we better do this, I suppose.